One of the questions that I get asked from time to time is, how do you explain faith? How do you explain faith to a child? And how do you explain God to a child, especially God who you cannot see, you have never seen yourself? How do you share with a child about faith? Well, starting off with faith as a child, it's a lot easier, right? As a child, we grasp onto things. We hold on to truths that people tell us, and we don't really wrestle with it very much. It isn't until we get a little bit older that we begin to question and to try to figure out more about what is going on in our world. But I bet if I asked you right now, what is faith? Or tell me what God is like, it'd be really hard for you. You might struggle with the words to try to figure out how to express this thing that holds you, this thing that is deep within you, that lays inside of you, that bursts from you, but you can't really describe it or explain it. On Sunday, we talked about doubting Thomas. Now, Thomas the twin is one of my favorite disciples, and he's one of my favorites because he's so honest. He's so vulnerable, and he just says how he feels. Peter's that same way, but Peter has a little bit more of authority kind of behind him, where Thomas almost feels like this younger man, this boy almost, who is just so excited and willing to go, but also would love to have the answers, and so questions and asks and is impulsive within those questions. And it makes me always think about, what are the questions that I have deep inside of me? What are those questions that I hold with the mystery of God that I'm too afraid to ask because others around me might think, well, that's a stupid question. Or others around me might go, well, why would you question that? Or why do you have doubts around that? They might judge me. And so there's a little bit of this shame that is wrapped around questioning God, questioning some of those truths. But Thomas isn't afraid to question. Thomas comes right out, and as the disciples are around him, sharing with them how Jesus showed up, Thomas is very honest. Unless I'm able to touch and feel, I will not be able to believe. I think about Thomas growing up with the disciples, 3 years of living with these guys whom are like family to him, who he knows, who he has been traveling with and doing ministry with. And when he comes into this room and maybe he's running an errand for them, maybe he just needed some fresh air and missed out in this one moment. But when he comes back into the room, how disappointed he must feel. Or even I wonder if he's wondering, are these guys pranking me? Are these guys playing some really mean trick on me? How can this even be true? It does not match up with what I know with my own eyes to be true in the world. And so Thomas asks the question. He's vulnerable in that. He's authentic in his faith. In our society, we're not really good at being vulnerable or authentic. We really like to have all of the answers, all of the things, and we know, right, within us, we know. And if anybody comes in and questions that or makes us try to explain it, it's really hard for us, and it can sometimes upset us. And so what we have created in our society is this space where no one can ask the questions. Asking questions, especially about big things like God, about Jesus, about faith, about the way in which the world works within all of that, that is taboo. We need to not ask those hard questions that don't really seem to have a good, easy answer. Noelle shared with the children on Sunday that it's hard to ask questions, but we need to remember that asking questions helps us because it shows that we're interested. It shows that we want to know more. God's never going to be upset with us asking questions. And understanding and knowing more is always a good thing, especially when we're thinking about God's love at work in the world. Philip Yancey wrote, "Over time, I have grown more comfortable with mystery rather than certainty. God does not twist arms and never forces us into a corner with faith in himself as the only exit. We can never present the final proof to ourselves or to anyone else. We will always, with Pascal, see too much to deny and too little to be sure." You see, faith is a thing that has to have a little space of unknown, has to have a little bit of space of mystery, has to have a little space of things that we cannot explain, or else it wouldn't be faith at all. And so in that, there has to be room for mystery. There has to be room for questions. There has to be room for doubt. Because if we had all of the answers, if we were all certain, completely 100% sure, then it wouldn't be faith. I think that's what makes this journey of faith the hardest, because we love to have those answers and we love to be sure. But we have to work on trying to be more vulnerable, more authentic with those spaces that we question, those spaces that we doubt. And we have to do that so that others also will have that space to come and to question and to doubt. See, the disciples, they didn't kick out Thomas when he didn't believe them. When he doubted, we don't have the whole story, but they didn't say, "Well, you're not one of us anymore. You need to go away. You can't ask these questions. You have to be sure. We're telling you, you need to know this. You need to say yes to this." But they allowed Thomas to stay with them in those places of questions, in those spaces of doubts. They had Thomas still there in the room with them, allowing that space for this mystery and the questions and the doubts to be there. I wish we could change Doubting Thomas's nickname. I wish we could change it to Faithful Thomas. Because in those moments in our lives where we have the deepest questions and doubts and struggles are the places that we are being the most faithful. Because we are willing to say, "I don't know. I'm not sure about this. God, I believe, but help my unbelief. I have seen too much to deny, but not enough to fully know and understand." And it's in those moments of faithfulness that we grow stronger and deeper in our connection with God, that we encounter Jesus in a new way that brings new life and vitality into the world. So let us not be afraid of our doubts. Let us not be afraid of the questions that we have, but let us wrestle with them. Let us ask those questions to others who we trust. Let us ask those questions to God and ask God to show up in a new way in which we can experience, where we can touch, where we can feel the love and presence of God with us. And as we are able to ask those questions, we can invite the mysterious God who loves us enough to show us his wounds, to show us his presence, to show us that grace that will then carry us deeper into that relationship with God and allow us to go out into the world and spread the good news. Let us embrace our doubts and be a faithful people who continue to live authentically and vulnerably and grow in our faith and allow the space for others to do the same.